Anybody have anything? There will be a brief family conference. Excuse me. All right. I get to share. And I don't know, some of you have been here a long time. I will say, our son got married Friday. An event that's been long in the making and a long and winding road, but, well, like he's a whole 28 years old, you know. But we're excited. And it's a girl to go with the two boys. So the family's growing and doing well. Along those lines, I will say if anybody knows of a low-cost used vehicle that is available, please see us after the service. They are in need of one. So if you know somebody who has something like that, that would be great. Anyone? Yes, Trinity.
It's kind of an event that's taking place here, but I have something to do with it. So my friend Aricia owns a fudge company. She started making fudge about 5 years ago, and she's having her 5-year anniversary party of her business downstairs on the 7th from 2 to 4. This says $10 each. I thought that it was $10 if you register in advance and $20 at the door, but you can give her a call to find out. If you go to my website, look at my shows page, and that's her phone number. She makes fudge in jars. It's not hard fudge, and I don't even really like hard or fudge is incredible. It's like nothing else I've ever tasted, and a lot of really interesting combinations. And so she's going to have everyone that comes gets a little sampler box, and she also is going to have somebody there that's either going to be talking about or give you samples of how to use the fudge in cooking and other things. And I will be playing the whole 2 hours from 2 to 4 background music. So if you want to come listen to that music, make fudge. And I'll be the savory to the sweet. So, that's going on Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know what time the game is, but I think it's in the evening.
Yeah, the game's later, so.
Get hopped up on chocolate and get some goodies to take to whatever Super Bowl party you're going to. Yeah, take a day of it.
Sounds like a plan. Anyone else have anything to share? Okay, with that, our daily word will be offered to us by Chris Gabrielson.
Today's word is compassion. Our affirmation is, I am one with all of humanity. When I think of the spiritual quality of compassion, I think of Jesus. The love he gave others was a healing balm. In quiet moments, I remember God's compassion for me and for all people. I set aside time to fully engage with God's love. I extend myself to others through compassionate thoughts and actions. Throughout the day, I behold the Christ in others and send them compassion-filled thoughts and prayers. These heart-to-heart connections enhance my sense of oneness with the world. We are one with God and one with each other. I am an expression of God's love, and through compassion, I connect to and serve humanity. Our scripture is Colossians 3:12. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Let us acknowledge this sacred moment by singing Surely the Presence.
Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel God's mighty power and God's grace. There's a holy hush around us. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. as we realize God's presence, as we acknowledge that there is within us radiating that spark of the divine, we settle into this awareness. We allow that spark to glow. We allow the awareness of God's presence to expand, to fill us. To heal us, transform us. And in affirming God's presence, we realize that we are a child of the Most High. And we give thanks that this is so. Father, Mother, God, thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen. Living powerfully. Over the course of the last several weeks, Reverend Doris, when she was here on the 10th of January, she talked about living love. And last week we celebrated Martin Luther King's birthday, and we talked about living authentically. And it seems to me that the next step in the progression of living love, living authentically, is living our power. Because we are powerful beings, each and every one of us. We are powerful. We are creative. We are imaginative. We have within us the divine aspects of ourselves that Charles Fillmore talked about as the 12 powers of woe-man. The 12 powers of man was how he put it, but I certainly acknowledge that we all have these 12 divine aspects within ourselves. And these 12 aspects are imagination, understanding. We have within us wisdom. We have within us the opportunity to understand our dominion. We have within us the divine order, and we can see that order manifesting in our lives, contrary to the evidence that may be appearing opposite to that. We have that power of faith that allows us to see that which is not apparent, but to be able to envision that which is true. We have the will, the strength. We're able to renunciate those things that do not fit in our lives. And we have the opportunity and the ability to express life in its fullness. And we have the zeal, the enthusiasm to make that so. These 12 powers of man are considered by many within the unity movement to be unity's unique contribution to the theology of this planet. Well, I won't go quite so far as to say that. The interesting thing is that Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, when Charles Fillmore looked at the literature of the world, and he came, the spiritual literature of the world, the sacred literature of the world, and he came back and formulated with Myrtle, the other co-founder, his wife, but Charles and Myrtle formulated this body of teachings that came to be known as the Unity teachings. And as a part of that, he was looking at a way of bringing awareness to the Christian tradition across the board. He was not looking, in the beginning, he was not looking to set up a separate movement or denomination. He was looking to have a publishing group, an education group that would allow people to take these truths and bring them back into their respective traditions, whatever they were, whether it was Baptist or Catholic or Presbyterian or Mennonite, whatever it was. He felt that these things could be seen from every denomination, from every tradition, in the context of the truth that they are present in each and every one of us. Well, as a person living the normal life, we grow up in this body, and we learn very early that we need food, we need water, we need comfort, right? We need an embrace of love. And our children, at the very earliest age, just when they are born, they have figured out how to declare their needs, right? And that cry for help is the first stage of moving out of that realm of embrace oneness with God into the world of separation and the recognition that there is something out there that I, as a newborn child, need. I feel hungry. I feel cold. I feel thirsty. So these needs are responded to by mother, by father, by parents, by family. And so we grow up into this world thinking that we are separate and apart. Well, in reality, we are not separate and apart. But we have this thing that we are because from the very first time we took our first breath, we have been shown, right? We've been proved that we are separate and apart. Well, the interesting thing is that as we develop in our consciousness, we move from this awareness of God presence, which I assert to be the state that children are born from, into this world, and we grow into this awareness of our separation. And there is an aspect of consciousness, you've heard me say it before, there's an aspect of consciousness that declares that separation from each other and from God. And that consciousness, that aspect of consciousness is the ego. Well, the ego is not interested in any of this. And so we go through life thinking that, oh, that person over there, that person is really creative. I couldn't do that, right? That is one aspect of proving that I am not connected to that person because I'm not that imaginative. Or that person really has a wealth of knowledge and an understanding that I just couldn't grapple. Well, that's one aspect. The other aspect is, boy, that person isn't very creative. I could have done a much better job than that, right? Boy, is that person stupid. Wow. How do they make it through the day, right? So whether it is I am smarter than or I am not as smart as, we have nonetheless proved, the ego has proved that we are separate from, right? So in that assessment of the other, whether it is a positive judgment or it is a negative judgment, it is a judgment. And that judgment in and of itself declares that separation. And in that judgment, we are disempowered. We are disempowered. We are disempowered because we are not living our fullness. We're not living our divinity because we have declared our separation from God and from each other, and we are struggling to make it through. But the powers that we have are nonetheless present. So when we declare our separation, we are actually disempowering ourselves, whether we are assessing our separation to be superior to or inferior to the others that we are comparing ourselves to. So these 12 powers of man are aspects of the divine that come through our personal consciousness. So we have the Christ light, that pure white light that is coming through our personal consciousness, and to one degree or another, depending upon the clarity of this consciousness. To one degree or another, we will realize some or perhaps all of these powers. We will say, oh wow, I really am creative. I can sit down with just a few things and come up with something really beautiful or something really inspiring or something. So I have imagination. Now, I may not think that I have strength, or I may not think that I have zeal, but those are just because our personal consciousness is clouded, and we're not realizing the full spectrum of the powers that we have, of those divine powers. So when the ego takes that assessment, whether it's positive or negative, that assessment of the other, and declares our separation from that person, we are also at the same time declaring our separation from God. Well, how do we overcome this? Here is an example of a teacher that is responsible for a class of special needs kids. And his name is Chris Ulmer. And when he began his teaching of this class of special needs, he took an unusual approach.
I love having you in my class. I think you're very funny. I think you're amazing.
Yes.
I think you are brilliant.
Yes.
I think everyone in here loves you.
Yes.
Great job. You're the greatest teacher ever. Thank you. You're a great student. You're welcome.
Wow. What if someone would come up to you just as you're waking up and whisper in your ear, "You are amazing. You are creative. You are powerful. You are able to relate to others in a very loving way. You show understanding and compassion." Think about that. What would that be like to do that? We have actually someone to do that, right? No, I'm not going to go down the road that it's Jesus that's going to do that for you. We have the ability in and of ourselves to bring that forward. We have in these 5 principles that came out of Charles Fillmore's writings. Charles Fillmore did not actually write those as a list. Those were compiled by his granddaughter in the mid-50s, late 50s, early 60s. But these 5 principles of unity, the 5 pillars of faith, as I borrowed from the Islamic tradition, there's one power and one presence. That is, there is no competition with God. There is no devil other than that aspect of consciousness which declares our separation from each other and from God. There is one Son of God, the Christ, that abides in each of us. That's a proposition. Now, a proposition is a process to be. It is an aspect to be proved. Right? Here's a proposition. How do we prove it? We prove it by paying attention to the process that the thoughts held in mind are manifest in our experience, and the tools for this, the practice, the tools for this is transformation are prayer and meditation. denials and affirmations. And the promise of this is that we change our lives by practicing this. So by changing our lives, we have proved the proposition, right? If we are, in fact, able to live these principles and come out the other side, if you will, come out to a state where we are realizing a greater realization of the presence in our lives, a greater realization of love in our lives, a greater realization of those 12 powers manifesting in our lives, then there must be something to the proposition. So these 5 principles, these 5 pillars of faith, are a body of teachings that allow us to realize that it's not about someone out there. It's not about someone in a distant past. It is about realizing our divinity for ourselves. Now, yes, we do consider Jesus to be our master teacher, and that's the point. He is a teacher. He's not a benefactor. He is a teacher. And what he teaches us is that it is indeed within us. It is within us, and that's what we need to learn. If we're going to live our lives powerfully, we need to realize that we're not dependent upon someone else to do something for us. We're not dependent upon Jesus to save us. Jesus taught us. And we save ourselves by listening to those teachings and putting those teachings into practice. Here's what he had to say in John. Come on, there we go. Starting John 14, verses 1, I think, through 13. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. Okay, there's the premise. There is one power and one presence. Believe that first. One power and one presence. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. As we look at the book of John, written some 70 to 90 years after the crucifixion, as we look at the book of John, we need to look at it from the perspective that the I, the first person in this book, as it is expressed by the writers who were probably not John, but rather the school of John, that is, the students who were following the teachings of John, as we look at this, the first person is the Christ. So as we read this from a metaphysical perspective, the first person is the Christ. So when he says in this book, if it were not so, would I, the Christ, have told you that I, the Christ, go to prepare a place for you? Think of this not as some distant place over here, but rather as a conditioning of consciousness. The Christ is conditioning our consciousness to be receptive to the truth of who we are. The Christ is setting it up, that is the one Son of God that is present in each and every one of us. The Christ, that divine aspect within ourselves, is conditioning our consciousness to realize the truth of who we are. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Let's see. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. As I have prepared the consciousness, as I, the Christ, have prepared the consciousness, what I am allowing is I'm allowing your realization to flow into that fertile ground of that divine consciousness to realize who you really are. And when you realize who you really are, you are living in power. You are living in power because you have the full spectrum of divine power that is within you to be expressed. Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? And Jesus said to him, I, the Christ, am the way and the truth and the life. This is the reality. I, the Christ, the divine aspect within each and every one of us, is how we come into the realization of God. And it's not about the specific name of the Christ. It's not about Christianity. It's about every divine tradition, every spiritual tradition talks about this aspect of arising from the within, the arising of the divine from the within. And Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. No one realizes divine presence without realizing the divine presence within. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. And here Jesus gets a bit miffed. He says, have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you still do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. Whoever has seen the Christ has seen God. Right? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me, that the Christ is in God and God is in the Christ? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his work. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. Very truly, I tell you, the one who believes in the Christ within will do the works that I do, and in fact will do greater works than these. Why? Because I am stepping out of your awareness so that you can manifest who you are in the fullness. I've used this analogy before, but it's like a flashlight. That is, the disciples are starting to come into the awareness of the Christ, and the power of their understanding is equivalent to a flashlight that is sitting right next to, on the fender of, a car that has the brights full on. And so as you are in front of the car, looking at the car with the lights on, you don't see the flashlight, right? Because the illumination of this presence of one who has realized, fully come into the awareness of his Christedness, is so bright that the disciples' flashlight just doesn't even register. But if you take the lights away, take the headlights away, then the flashlight is very apparent, right? Well, as we come into the realization that, yes, we are an illuminating presence, and start to practice and be aware of that illuminating presence, our light will get brighter. That's what the practice is. As we come to know these principles, that there is one power and one presence, that the Christ is present in each and every one of us, that the thoughts that we hold in mind manifest in our experience, and that the tools of transformation are prayer and meditation, denials and affirmations. And as we practice those, as we put those things into practice, we realize more and more that we are the Christ, that our brightness is as full and as complete and as penetrating as is anyone. Because we have taken the steps to be aware and to prove our Christedness. And that's how we live in power. We live in power by practicing these principles and coming into the realization of the fullness of who we are as spiritual beings, as the expression of the Christ in the moment, as the expression of God in the moment. It's not about a God out there, but rather a God that is in here, striving to come out. And as we set aside our ego and set aside those seeming proofs of our separation from each other and from God, we are able to realize God's presence in its fullness. We'll have our meditation. As we come into our meditation, let us come in with I cast all my cares. cast all my cares on you, God. I cast all my cares on you and lay all my burdens in your presence. I cast all my cares on you, oh God. I cast all my cares on you, God. I cast all my cares on you. And even when I'm not sure what I should do, I cast all my cares on you, oh God. So where is that voice telling you that you are magnificent, that you are creative, that you are wise? That voice is within. That voice is acquired. It's heard when we come into the silence. We let go of the yammerings of the world, and we pay attention to that still small voice within. We breathe into the moment. We allow ourselves to rest in the quiet of the breath. And we listen. But we listen not just with our ears and our brain. We listen with our heart. And that still small voice will express, not necessarily in words, but in feelings. So we pay attention to the feelings in our hearts. Sometimes those feelings seem to be positive and uplifting. Sometimes those feelings seem to be negative and depressing. But we embrace them because each one teaches us. Each one will teach us a divine aspect of ourselves as either an example or a lesson. So we listen with our hearts. We acknowledge each lesson, each example, each one that is offered to us. And then we let it go. We breathe. And we listen some more. and in the quiet, in that still, small voice speaking to us through the heart, we become more powerful. We become more an awareness and an expression of Christ's presence, of the divine moving through us into this moment. And thus we are blessed. And in that awareness, we come back into this time and space, sharing the words of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory And we'll take an offering for unity now. As we take our offerings in our hands, let us bless them with this offering statement. Together, please. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I trust in God. And once again, Trinity Damask, irreverence.